me start recording. If you've watched some of the YouTube postings of this meeting, you'll notice that every once in a while, I forget to press that record button at the start of the meeting, and it shows up like in the middle of somebody's update. So I'm gonna try and be more mindful of that moving forward. Okay, so this morning on the agenda, we're going to kick off by doing this review and a friendly reminder of our North Star. Then we're going to focus on talking point number 2, building a local food economy, with a concept introduction of Food Hub. And then we are very fortunate to have a guest speaker who will be joining us from a very successful food hub in Minnesota, recommended to us by Maggie Admack, our technical assistance provider from the Colorado Health Foundation, but also a person deeply experienced in local food systems development. So we're lucky to have Reese joining us. After that, we'll spend some time on our DEIA work and focus on the concept of social determinants of health. Some of you may know what that is. Some of you might be thinking, what in the world does that mean? But hopefully by the end of our exercises together, you'll have a clear understanding of the concept and how it layers into food systems change. Then we will wrap up the meeting with a round of updates from our working group co-chairs. I will provide a very brief coordinators report, and as always, we'll leave time at the end for community announcements, reflections, and appreciations. Are there any questions on the agenda before we get started? Okay. So I'm seeing just a few more people in the waiting room here. If you forgive me while I let them in. And I want to make sure everyone has the active link to the agenda today, because it's a very interactive document. You'll be relying on the agenda to sort of get you to where you need to go for some of these activities. So please do have that open in a tab if you're on screen. If you happen to be by telephone only, send me a message and I will make sure that you and I are in breakout groups so that we can discuss the activities if you don't have the document in front of you. Okay, so I've posted the agenda in there a couple of times now, and we're going to go ahead and get started on our concept intro of a food hub. So I'm going to break you up into small groups, and you'll see the second bullet there is an image. Go ahead and click on review this image, and it should pop up in a new window or screen on your computer. And in your small groups, I would like you to cover the following questions. Would something like this benefit Pueblo? Why or why not? If so, who could or should run it? And then lastly, what challenges might there be? This is just a brainstorm exercise for y'all to get speaking to each other early in the morning, see if that coffee is kicked in yet. So no right or wrong answers. We just want to kind of get our brains moving and grooving here. And I am going to send you into some breakout rooms now. And we will go ahead and get started. All right, you should be headed into your room. Click on that image in the agenda and have that discussion. And I'll bring y'all back in about 7 to 8 minutes. Off you go. Hi, Maggie.
Good morning. I'm just tagging along if that's okay.
Sure.
Great. I'm just going to join through Reese's presentation.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Hi, Monica. I joined late, so I have no idea what the break points, how the break sessions?
Sure. Yeah, I just put the agenda in the chat for you. We're on the very top section, Food Hub. It's a concept introduction. You'll see a hyperlinked bullet number 2 under that section that says review this image. And we're just taking a look at that image and then asking ourselves as a small group the discussion questions below. So
Okay.
you are welcome to join a group. I can assign you to one, or I think perhaps, yeah, you can join group 3 if you like
Okay.
and start that question. Let me see if I can resend you the invite.
I think I found it. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. We'll see you back here in a few minutes. Good morning, folks in the main room. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Hey, John. Let me drop the agenda in the chat and we will just go ahead and stay here in the main room. I've already sent people out into breakout rooms, but we can discuss here. So agenda in the chat, go ahead and open that up. And we are on concept introduction food hub. There is a hyperlinked image in that bullet, excuse me, in that section, second bullet says review this image. And if you wouldn't mind just opening that up, and we can stay here in the main room and have a discussion on, you know, whether or not we think a concept like this would be valuable for Pueblo. If so, who should and could run it, and what challenges we might have. So we can just sort of engage in that conversation here if that works for y'all. Andrew, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was just reading it to myself.
Oh.
Kind of like, yeah.
No problem. Yeah, so click on that image. It's a very straightforward infographic, but there's a lot of detail there. I guess one place we can start, does anyone in this small group have experience with a food hub? All right, so we're all kind of fresh to the idea. Good morning, TJ. Good morning. Sorry, TJ. Wow. Good morning, CJ. Good morning, Raelyn. I have not had my coffee yet.
Neither have I. I kept trying to do the old link, and that's my own fault. So.
Oh, dang it. All right. Well, glad you found us in the new link. We're just reviewing this image that's hyperlinked under the second section of the agenda, review this image, and talking about the idea of a food hub. So maybe we can do a quick round of intros for the folks who have their camera on, and we'll act as our own small group rather than me bouncing you out to one of the breakouts, and then we can sort of have this discussion. I'm just going to go on my list, if you wouldn't mind, name, organization, and if you think a food hub would be valuable in Pueblo, that'd be great. And I'll just stick with the folks that I can see on camera. How about Andrew?
Good morning. My name is Andrew. I'm with Boomy Soil Company. I'm a worm casting and organic soil producer here in Pueblo, just getting started out. I really love the idea of these food hubs. I have never seen anything like that before necessarily, but I've lived here for like 13 years in Pueblo, and I've always thought something like this would be sort of necessary for our community. I think, you know, obviously there's a lot of struggles with food, access to affordable quality food, things like that. So if it was done well, and if it was, yeah, just executed well and had, like you said, the right people behind it, I think it would be really great for Pueblo. It kind of reminds me of like maybe like a massively stepped up version of like the belly boxes that are around town. It's kind of like a similar concept to that, but again, definitely scaled up quite a bit. So
Yeah, I love how you made that connection, like aggregate and distribute. That's exactly what the Belly Box is doing. So I love that parallel. How about you, John?
Sure, if I can unmute myself. I'm John Williamson, and I'm the Senior Director of Research Development at CSU Pueblo. So I'm the university's representative on this, and glad to be. I haven't been but a short while, I guess, so I'm still learning. The food hub looks interesting. All of this is kind of new to me, so I like it a lot, but you know, I have to kind of get used to understanding it. But to me, it sort of looks like a sophisticated farmers market in some ways. Am I reading that right, guys?
Yeah, I think that's one way definitely to look at it. One of the biggest differences I'd argue is volume and customer. Whereas the farmer's market is really usually farmer to consumer, the food hub is really B2B. So farmer to other large business. So it kind of plays with that scale a little bit, but you have the idea right. Cut out the middleman. Yeah.
I mean, it seems really cool.
All right, CJ, how about you? Quick intro and your thoughts on the food hub concept.
All right, I'm CJ Crowther. I'm the wholesale manager for Springside Cheese between both of our locations in Wisconsin and Pueblo. I already deal with, it would be taking out the middlemen compared to some of the distributors that we already deal with that are trying to do the same concept, but they're getting a portion of the pie instead of just using a community aspect, such as a food hub. So I'm in different groups throughout the project, and I think the food hub is where we need to go.
All right, thank you, Raelyn.
Hi, I'm Raelyn Martinez. I'm a student family wellness coordinator with District 60. I love this idea. I've never heard of a food hub, but I think it's definitely a creative and community-based way to feed all of Pueblo. And I really like, you know, I'm from the district, so I really love the idea of pulling that local food into schools and into, you know, in other areas of our community. I don't know. I love this idea. I would love to learn more.
All right, what challenges do we see? It all looks nice on paper, but we know it's not that easy. So what challenges do you foresee in kind of kicking off this sort of concept?
The first one I can think of just right off the top of my head being I've worked in a lot of restaurants, managed a lot of kitchens. Breaking up the supply chain in any way is always pretty traumatic for businesses. People are used to ordering from, you know, Cisco, and they've got their rep that they work with or whatever. You know, people are really, it's really hard to get business owners to change the way they do things. And that is, I think, a huge hurdle in this is getting the operators to lead instead of operate. And that's tricky.
Yeah, great point. I think you hit a very big nail on the head in terms of changing behavior from the purchasing side. That's a critical one. Other thoughts? John, do you see any challenges just from this initial introduction?
You know, I deal with a lot of grants and whatnot, and the first thing that always comes to my mind, because you know, when you write a grant, it is the majority of the money that you put in, of course, is the personnel requirement and the time needed. And I just don't know what this would require, but I would expect you would need at least one full-time person who could work on this, if not maybe more. So just looking at it, I don't think you could go in very easily with a lot of, you know, sort of part-time volunteer kind of people. That was my first thought.
The people power.
I'll
The very
quickly-
tricky coordination. All
I'll
right.
quickly add in, it seemed like several of the people said a food hub was new to them So that'll also be an obstacle, trying to make sure we reach out and help people understand exactly what it is accomplishing.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Thank you for chiming in, Kairos. I can't see you, but it's good to know you're here. And folks are starting to rejoin us from their breakouts, and we are going to hear more about this concept from an expert very, very soon. So we'll let people get back in here. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, welcome back. We'll go ahead and let everyone rejoin us here. Everyone should be getting booted out in a minute. I'm just going to, I don't see our guest speaker quite on the line yet, so I'm going to text him while folks are coming back. All right, welcome back, everybody. We have 1 or 2 minutes for a key takeaway from a couple of your working groups. Let's see. I'm going to pick on somebody just to help facilitate. Jen DeGroot, what do you have to say this morning? Good morning, sister.
I successfully unmuted myself, so we're off to a great start.
All right.
Yeah. So we were talking about the benefit to Pueblo that this would have. So we do have several small to medium farms in the county, and they might not necessarily have the product all the time sustainably to fill large scale orders, but they also kind of need buyers. So when we're looking at that image, it seemed like a food hub would benefit Pueblo based on what we have going on here. And the challenges that we identified would be like seasonal growth disparities. So like what happens if you have a food hub and you have these contracts, but what happens if a harvest fails? And what happens if a harvest fails across the board for everyone in the county because of some act of God situation? And then if there's any imbalance of production versus distribution and purchasing, can we can and freeze anything left over? Can we work with food banks and completely donate anything like day old food or whatever? Could we work with schools and donate food? And then as far as location, we would definitely need like a large parking lot somewhere, and then also a large indoor space for the cold products as well. And what came to mind for me, just because I live on the north side, is the old Kmart lot. But then we thought it would be super cool if we could target one of our food deserts, because that's what we're all about.
All right, I think that is a great summary, and I am very excited to share that we have an expert in exactly this concept on the line with us this morning. So before I hand over the reins to Reese Williams from the Good Acre, Executive Director of the Good Acre, I'd love to play for you a short video about his operation. So give me 1 second to pull that up, and we will learn a little bit more. All right, 2 shakes here so I can get this loaded.
As far as the breakout rooms, Monique, I think it would be wonderful to have an actual, more than a 5-minute conversation about these topics.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Derek. You're absolutely right. It would be great to have a more in-depth conversation, and would love to create an opportunity for that in one of our working groups or otherwise. But yes, it is tricky to do it all, isn't it? Okay, give me just a second, guys. I have thought this was loaded up, but I'm not seeing it where I want it. So I'm
one thing about those food interruptions, there's a fellow, I'm looking for his card now, that does local food distribution. And his answer to that is they typically have contracts maybe out of the county, but in the region or something, coordinated as backups. And then the other thing is you have to be able to take that food and freeze it, process it and freeze it so that the schools on hand have an opportunity to quote unquote harvest from earlier in the season and that sort of thing.
And here we go. Should be, oops, let me pause this so it doesn't start without, yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry for that slow down, y'all. I really thought I had that saved to my desktop. So here we go.
Imagine a food system that values the hard work of farmers and their essential impact on our local economy. Imagine a food system that focuses on the health of the soil and the people it feeds. Imagine a community where all farmers and food makers have access to the resources they need to run a successful business. At the Good Acre, the programs and services we offer are helping to bring this vision to life. A food system that values local food and the people who bring it from a seed to our table. Our programs take a holistic approach to strengthening the food system and supporting small farmers. We also provide critical infrastructure like cold and dry warehouse storage, space to wash, sort, and pack produce, and distribution logistics. In our kitchen, we provide culinary training aimed at strengthening farm-to-school programs in school districts throughout the Twin Cities. We are also home to a vocational culinary training program that helps school kitchens overcome one of their biggest challenges, a shortage of trained school chefs. By offering vocational culinary training with a farm-to-school focus, we are supporting schools' ability to feature local produce in their kitchens. When a school can serve more scratch-made meals made with local ingredients, it's a win for kids, a win for schools, and a win for farmers. Shared use commercial kitchens also play a vital role in supporting a strong food system. Ours is home to over a dozen small food businesses. Our state-of-the-art facility allows makers to produce, source, and store their products all through a single relationship. That's the kind of streamlined support that builds a better business and enables more people to choose to spend their dollars on produce and food items that are made locally. Our Farm Share program has grown to serve over 500 members. Through the Farm Share, we are able to introduce farmers to growing for wholesale, as well as connect our member community to fresh, healthy food. We contract with our farmers at the start of each growing season, providing them with a guaranteed market and the benefit of our grower support services. Our one-on-one grower support program offers direct farmer assistance in crop planning, pest and disease management, soil fertility, and implementing on-farm food safety measures.
Right.
This kind of assistance helps to build the capacity of our small farm partners to meet the demand of wholesale markets. And through our wholesale program, we serve as a link connecting schools, hospitals, and other organizations in the greater metro area with healthy, locally grown food. When the coronavirus pandemic began, many direct and wholesale markets that farmers relied on disappeared overnight. There was an increased need to support small farmers and those experiencing food insecurity in our community. We worked with 6 partner organizations to create the Local Emergency Assistance Farmer Fund, also known as LEAF. LEAF enables the Good Acre to purchase produce directly from impacted farmers and donate it to organizations supporting those facing hunger. By the end of 2020, we purchased over $300,000 in produce from nearly 50 BIPOC farmers and donated 150,000 pounds of produce to our hunger relief partners. Initially, this collaborative effort was just an emergency response, but there is a real long-term need for this project to continue into the next growing season. Together, our programs and services are a perfect example of why a food hub is such an important part of the greater food system. This is the Good Acre's vision for an equitable and thriving food system in action, made possible by support from our volunteers, farm share members, customers, partners, and donors. Thank you for being a part of our community.
All right. And if you believe it, we have the man with the plan on the phone. So Reese Williams.
Thanks everyone for joining us tonight.
Oh,
Hi.
oh, I'm sorry. I think that's the YouTube video going on ahead without us. Yes, as I was saying, Reese Williams is the executive director of the Good Acre. Reese, if you wouldn't mind giving the group an introduction while I pull up your slide deck, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Hi. Hey, very nice to be with you guys. I watched one of the things that you did with Monique last night, and it was pretty cool. You guys are doing some really cool stuff. So my name is Reese Williams. I'm the executive director of the Good Acre. My background is in agriculture. I was an organic vegetable farmer for about 25 years. In Yakima, Washington, and up in British Columbia, upstate New York, and then southeast Minnesota. I had an illness. I got into working for a co-op distributor in the Twin Cities, and was there for about 6 years before joining the Good Acre about 6 years ago, which is, yeah, we're about 6 years old. So just a little background on the Twin Cities. So the Twin Cities is a pretty progressive food town. We've got a lot of co-ops. There's 11 food co-ops in town, a lot of really good restaurants, a lot of support for local farmers. Having been a local farmer for quite a while, I knew the support, good markets, and I knew that going in. So when we started the Good Acre, the whole point of it was to help farmers, the underserved population of farmers. Because farmers like myself, we had a lot of resources. And we were very fortunate to have them. We tried to focus our work on farmers that didn't have as easy a time starting a farm and maintaining a farm and growing it over the years. So, and we have a really healthy community of Hmong and Latino farmers in our community. And so that's who we put our focus on too. We grew pretty slowly, and Maggie Adamek was extremely important in our development. She was there at the very beginning when there were just a few of us. And the interesting thing, I mean, the thing I brought to the project was not only this ag experience, but also experience with the wholesale game. The place I worked for was called Co-op Partners. It lost money for 12 years. Okay, it was run by a co-op. It's now pretty large. I think it did 56 million last year. But for the first 12 years, it struggled and it lost money, and it received money from the co-op that owned it. So I came into this experience knowing, what the hell am I doing? I mean, why? Because I knew it was going to be hard, right? And I was clear to everybody who joined us that this is going to be an adventure, and the food system is hard, and trying to make margin and trying to do all the things that we are attempting at the Good Acre has been a struggle. It's been a really good struggle, and right now we're in a pretty good space, but we have, we've had some ups and downs, as everybody has. I mean, the best thing we have at the Good Acre is our staff. And we have a staff of 11 people, and they all know a lot more than I do. You know, I mean, I hired people that were young and excited and passionate and flexible. And I feel like that was really the key to what gave us a chance of succeeding. Okay. So when we opened the Good Acre, what the first thing I wanted to do was build community. So you could flip that. Would you flip that, Monique, to the next one? Yeah, there's our mission, connect, strengthen farmers, food marketers, communities through good food. Like I said, farmers are right in the center of everything we do. Everything we do is built around helping farmers have a better life, small farmers. And so I was very fortunate to be involved in sort of the design of this space a little bit. So we have a warehouse, we have a kitchen, we have a classroom, and we have 3 hoop houses that we use for farmers to learn how to do season extension. Because we live in Minnesota. I mean, it's nice today, it's 30, you know, but we have some short seasons. So season extension is an important piece to many farmers if they're going to make a living at this game. And so you're looking at our warehouse and our farm share, which is the CSA. We started a CSA. That's the first thing I did to build community. I had a large one at the previous farm I was working with. And so I knew this was a way to get people into the building, to get our name in the community, to sort of build up a reputation. And it immediately got us, we were able to pay farmers for produce. And that was the whole point of what we were doing, is trying to pay. And we paid a really good wage. We paid retail. Fortunately, I sort of knew the pricing structure of the area. So we were able to pay retail pricing for the produce we got. When we started, I was really, really careful to not disrupt the already healthy food system that we had in our town. We didn't go to co-ops. We didn't go to the restaurants. I didn't want to tick off the farmers that were already in there and take away business that they had earned. And in the farm I was on for a dozen years was one of those farms, and I sure as hell didn't want to tick off my friend who still owned it. So we were really, really careful. We danced around that a lot and kind of came into a community that already had a healthy food system. What are you guys doing? And we had to kind of prove our worth. And over time, we've been able to do that. But it was, you know, avoid going to places, filling in gaps. That was what I wanted our motto to be at the beginning. We fill in gaps because there's a lot of gaps in the local food system, and there's a lot of inequities, and there's a lot of problems, frankly. And so we go after those as best we can. And because we're a nonprofit, and because the second person I hired was a grant writer, we were able to kind of supplement the money we were losing from doing produce at, you know, paying well, and then not necessarily going after the best markets. We learned really quickly. So when I started this, what I wanted to do is institutions. I thought, well, there is an opportunity. Farm to school. I think it's brilliant. I think it's supported. It's a really good, healthy way to get food to people that need it, as well as build local economy. I mean, that's what we're all about. That's what we're trying to do. So we got into farm to school in a big way, and started off with 4 school districts. But what we did, and this picture on the up here, this women with the blue shirt, they are school employees. What we did was we not only offered produce, but we offered a way to cook it and prepare it. And so we hired 2 chefs and did classes for lunch professionals, and worked with the nutrition directors to design recipes around stuff that was seasonal. For us, like in the Midwest, and especially in Minnesota, if you're a farmer, you struggle in the spring and the summer, you make money in the fall. Storage crops are when you can actually control some pricing because you're sticking them away till all the farmers markets are closed, and then you can sell them at a pretty good rate. So we encouraged our farmers to go heavy into fall crops. It's also when school's in session. And so we were able to we went from 4 school districts to 12 to 34 within 4 years. And it was all, a good piece of it was our work with the nutrition directors and just making it easy for them. And that's what we really tried to do, is just build as many relationships that we can. We spoke at any conference we could for nutrition director professionals. We did any support we could. We gave samples away. We sent samples to schools, and we also sent our chefs directly into their kitchens to work with their staff. And it was all about building relationships. And until the pandemic, we kind of got kicked around as everyone did, but we were doing fairly well on our mission. We had really helped these school districts adjust to farm to school. We also got paid for the trainings. All right, they had fed money to do trainings, and so they turned it over to us. So we actually were able to almost break even on the produce that we sold to the schools, because they still didn't have a lot of budget for food. It's still the same problems they had before, but there was a way, if we could get some kind of money to supplement it. And then we got a USDA farm to school grant that helped us also. And it paid for one staff member, one of our chefs came out of that grant. And we also bought some equipment, a combi oven and a couple other things. So it was a big step. Now, let me tell you a little bit. I'm going to skip this slide for a second, just tell you a little bit about our vocational training program, because that came directly, there it is. Thank you, Monique. That came directly from our farm to school. Basically what we did is we went to all our directors 2 years ago and said, what would help you guys buy more? And they said experienced staff. They had a problem, they had the same, most of them had the same staff they've had for 25 years. Working in a school kitchen is a pretty good job. It pays well, you get benefits, you get summers off. And if you have kids in school, you can pretty much mimic the schedule that they're on for your work. So we decided to design this vocational training program. We partnered with 2 organizations that work with women that experience domestic violence. And we went and we basically put up and the woman standing in the blue shirt, or green shirt, that's Lachelle Cunningham. She's our vocational training instructor. And that's a class that she's having right now for these women. And we pay the women to take the class. We pay for childcare, we pay for transportation, and we get them an internship, paid internship that we pay for in order for them to go into a school district that's relatively close to where they live. Because a lot of them travel by bus, and the Twin Cities have a pretty good bus system, but it's not as great as other cities I've lived in. So we really tried, again, it's all about support. It's like, how can we make the lives of our nutrition directors easier? So ultimately they'll buy more produce. And so this is, we had originally, and it was all grant funded. All right. And this was Cargill. Okay. And I say that with knowing that you guys may throw apples and stuff at the screen, because I know I'm from organic farm world. That was my world, and Cargill was not looked on, and still is not looked on as a great partner, but they have a tremendous foundation in the Twin Cities, and they fund a lot of programs, and they funded this, and they gave us quite a bit of money, and we paid for Lachelle's salary, as well as all the money that goes into, the people taking the class are paid $22 an hour to take the class. So it's a pretty good deal for them, and they're guaranteed a job at a school district once they complete the class. Unfortunately, this year we had 16 people sign up. Because of COVID, we had to knock it down to 8. And because of COVID, we also were restricted on some of the school districts we were going to place them in. So we found some alternative sites. We have a second cohort in June that will be starting in order for the fall schools or semester, and I'm hoping, as we all are, that things are opened up a little bit more and schools are a little bit more active, because we want to get more people into these classes. They've been really popular. Lachelle did a fabulous job, and we're pretty proud of it. It's one of the I feel like it's one of the best things we do. We do have some staff that think, how does that help farmers? And they'll live with it. It's okay. Okay, so that is our kitchen basically. Oh, we also have a dozen businesses in there. Well, actually about 16 now, all small, and we teach. There you go. Thank you. God, you're good at this. Thank you. And we teach business classes for them. We've got one going on this morning right now, for makers who have local products in our kitchen. And then we also, through our CSA, we have a market for them. So we can sell, we have a maker share, and then we use them to, so we have 500 member CSA, and they get products from our kitchen too. So one of the things I did also, which was, that I pat myself on the back for, I don't pat myself a lot, but one of the first, about the fourth hire I made was for a grower support specialist, basically a farmer like myself, because in the Minnesota, we are a corn and soybean state, and have been for a long time. There is a growing movement with all the farmers markets for specialty crop growers, but it's not well supported. And I had come from a state in Washington where we had a very robust extension service that I was growing apples and pears, so we were growing the state apple. So it made sense that there would be a robust extension. In Minnesota, there isn't a lot for vegetable growers, just beginning. So we hired someone full-time who works with all our farmers. So he visits every farm. He provides help. He's an organic farmer like myself, retired. Provides anything they need to get going. We provide organic fertilizer. We provide packaging. We have our warehouses set up. If they have to wash, pack, and store, they can do that there. We got some money to teach GAP certification, and which is good agricultural practices. If you're going to be playing in the institutional food game, that's what they ask for. It's one more barrier that they throw out to stop farmers, small farmers, from getting into it. We kind of said, well, we'll go after them. So we did that, and we got some money and built hand washing stations, and got a few of our farmers certified GAP. So that was an accomplishment, but that was through the work of our grower support specialist. Right now he's doing business training for farmers and writing business plans. A lot of our farmers are Hmong. We work with about 60 different farmers now. A lot of them are Hmong and like first generation, so older Hmong growers that have not had a lot of experience in business. So he's translated everything into their language, and he's out working with them. And we partner with another organization that's helping us to find the farmers and kind of reach them at where they're at, where they live. And so that's his, and again, it's grant funded, So as I said, when I started this, I had no experience in nonprofits. I'd never worked for one. I came from ag. It took me about 3 years to figure out that we're a nonprofit. And then I hired a woman to run our grant program. I had hired someone at the beginning, but he was an ag guy from SARE, which is the big ag grant giver. He came from that, so he didn't know it either. So when I hired this woman to be our kind of liaison to the nonprofit world, it made a hell of a difference, because she spoke the language, knew what we were doing. And it's made a great difference in how much money we've been able to raise through grants. We've got about a dozen now, about 10 out there now that we'll be hearing from for the next 6 months. And we have, we just keep cranking them out. Doesn't hurt. You can't lose. I mean, it's time, but the opportunities are there if you need them. So can you shoot, so our wholesale program, again, we do farm to school, we do farm to healthcare. That's been a bit of a pain and it's been really problematic, and we run into more problems there and barriers there than we do in the schools, but we're still at it. And then we also, last year, when everything shut down, and it was mentioned in this, we did something called LEAF, and I'll explain that to you. And it was, yeah, it's the next one, I think. Yeah, there you go. So LEAF was basically when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, which is near where our building is, relatively close. A lot of things were destroyed. A lot of the grocery stores, a lot of, the town just spiraled down. And we realized that farmers markets weren't going to happen. And so the first farmers market that was held was the weekend after George Floyd's murder, and there were still buildings on fire. So we said to our farmers, we'll buy whatever you got. Bring it to us, we'll purchase it. Sight unseen. We'll give you some money for this first week. And then we'll figure out what we can do from there. It didn't cost much. It was $6,000, you know, because it was springtime. There wasn't a lot of stuff out there, but it didn't cost us much money, but it really made a difference in the attitudes of the farmers we were working with. So then we decided, well, if this is going to be the case, if there's no farmers markets, the farmers are the ones who are going to get screwed because they've already planted and they're harvesting to go to farmers markets. And many of our farmers are under 5 acres. So they're very dependent on farmers markets. So that's when we started LEAF, and we partnered with a couple other 5, 6 other organizations. We each put in 10 grand and started buying product from farmers, and started off with $45,000, which doesn't, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's really not when divided between 6 different organizations. And it made a great deal of difference to the farmers we were buying it from. And then we donated that produce back into the community through dropping off at encampments, because there are a lot of homeless people, and then they had taken over a lot of the parks in our area. We dropped at parks, we got Catholic Charities involved. We just started driving around, dropping off food to people. And it was really, really appreciated because, again, the grocery stores were burned in South Minneapolis. So as we got going, we realized that this was going to take over our lives. And that's basically what it did for the last 6 months and we kept everything else going, but we put a lot of effort into LEAF, and we're able to raise quite a bit of money. We raised over $600,000 and spent, well, it says over 300,000. We spent close to $450,000 and then banked the rest for this year, for 2021. And basically it was having farmers come to our warehouse, drop off. We provided boxes when they got there if they didn't have boxes. If they hadn't washed it, they could wash it in our facility. And then we boxed it up, stuck it in the warehouse in our coolers, and then brought it out on Fridays to all the different, you can see a list of all our drop sites. There were some Hmong schools that had things going home with their kids, because there was the Hmong community was devastated by COVID, not only the illness, but the lack of jobs. It just hit a lot of service jobs, as it did everywhere in the States and everywhere in the world. So there was a tremendous need. So we started dropping off at these schools, at anywhere we could. There were people standing. There were lines around the block. One of the things we did, which now I realize was something that hadn't done, was we really got a lot of culturally appropriate crops because of the groups we were working with. Bitter ball, which is called Asian eggplant. It's a small, and this is, and I think it's awful, man. It is so bitter, but people love it. And so they were around the block waiting for bitter ball, which we didn't know. We just said, bring. A farmer called us, said, can I bring this here? I said, heck yeah, bring it. We got it. We gave it away. People loved it. And it's same with sweet potato leaves for the West Africans in our community, and then jalapeno and serrano peppers. Again, lines around the block for these products that the farmers were growing for the farmers market. That's where there's Hmong farmers markets in our community that have strictly produce that is culturally appropriate for them, and we just took it in. And it hadn't been put in the food banks very often. Food banks were taking cukes and lettuce and potatoes and onions and carrots and not necessarily opening it up to these different crops. So we said, what the heck, let's do it. It turns out it was really, really popular, and we are going to do it again this year. We're going to work with Second Harvest and supply them with all kinds of culturally appropriate crops, and then try to get them into the food banks that are serving the neighborhoods that love those crops. So, so Leaf was just kind of we just kind of were bouncing. We were figuring out, we had lost our school accounts, healthcare was in, it was a pandemic. And so Leaf kind of grew out of that. We actually worked with Second Harvest for about 2 months, which is the big food bank in town here, for free. We just said, look, we'll just help. So we have 2 trucks, or a truck and a van, and we just did deliveries for them, and just as a donation, because they were in such desperate need. And at the end of that, they actually paid us and then signed us to provide them produce for the rest of the year. And it was a lot of produce, and they paid at our pricing. So, and that wasn't our intent when we did it, but that was sort of what came out of this. So I can stop anytime. I can answer questions anytime. You guys just let me know what you need. I'm here for you, whatever I can provide, share whatever we got.
I have a quick, easy question so I can summarize what I got from your presentation mostly. Yeah. Would you say it's an accurate assessment that this would not have happened without grants? And one of your key roles to success was hiring your fabulous grant writer who was able to achieve that success for you?
We would probably still, yeah, you can say that. Yeah. It's such a big, important piece of it, because we're playing with margins that are really, really small. When I was in the wholesale game our margins were between 28 and 36%. Okay. At the Good Acre, we're at 8 to 10. Because we're giving the money to the farmers, right? So we're paying them a fair wage. That's the whole point of the place. So we can do that if we can supplement it with grant funding. If we couldn't, then we'd be cutting back on what the farmers get, and then we lost the whole point of being there. Because we're trying to support the farmers as a wholesaler in a different, but not playing the game like we're going to pay you 4 cents a pound or 6 cents a pound. Or we kicked it down from what they made at the farmer's market, but we're right up there. We're more than wholesale. We're like if they sent it to a retail grocery store. That's what we based our pricing model on. So the grants were really important.
The other thing I would add is, as Reese and I were doing the market analysis in the business planning before the Good Acre was built, is we looked at a lot of different models around the US and success and what didn't succeed. And a lot of food hubs go under. And so we really had this paradigm as we reviewed all of these, that it can take 7 to 10 years for a food hub to be financially self-sustaining. So finding long-term patient supporters who understand that a certain percentage of your revenue every year is going to have to be grants for an extended period of time. As Reese said, some of your profit centers or some of your programs may have to subsidize other aspects of your programs. And one of the really great things about the Good Acre is it's not just that they built it and the farmers came or the school districts came, funders came and started knocking on the door and looking for opportunities to support and opportunities to partner. So I think there's been grant stream income that continues to emerge, either that the Good Acre is pursuing, or in the case of several funders and opportunities, those entities have pursued the Good Acre and are looking to partner and support existing and new work. So just having that realistic mindset about what the financial model needs to look like and what's involved. And I've toured some really amazing food hubs. There's a terrific one in Charleston, South Carolina. It's beautiful. And they're about 9 years in and still at about 70% grant funded in terms of their overall budget. And Reese and his team, they really are miracle workers. They do amazing work and they've been very savvy financially. And one of the things I really respect about Reese in particular, but about the Good Acre also in general, is that they really are committed not just to farmers, but to bringing farmers out of poverty. Because as you know, a lot of the farmers who grow fruits and vegetables as opposed to commodity crops, which is what a lot of our crop agriculture is in Minnesota, are low income. And in particular, when you're talking about new immigrants and farmers of color. So their commitment to ensuring that farmers have a good livelihood. There's a lot of things I love about the Good Acre, but that's a clear core value and is definitely an anchor in terms of how they've had to develop their revenue model to be able to sustain that commitment. And it's just having those things in mind as you think about what your model could or should look like are really important. It's important to not be idealistic. It's important to be realistic and clear-eyed and pragmatic and very, very enterprising. And as Reese said, be generous in your relationship building, because those relationships begin to yield concrete opportunities for the good of the organization, but also for the good of the community.
If I can say too, when you're the new game in town, you get a lot of opportunities, and it really takes I mean, I don't know if we've made all the right choices, but we've said no a lot, and that was just as important, because we had a lot of opportunities to partner, and we had and it really took some discipline to choose who we were going to be working with and what we are. I mean, the farmers are at the middle or in the center. All right. So we hold on to that. So if it's too far from them, then we don't play. And we've had opportunity. And again, it's hard in retrospect, it's hard to say what we missed. We may have missed opportunities, but at the same time, I can say that we were comfortable in the choices we made.
How about another question from coalition members for Reese? I know that I have one, but let's take a couple more from our group.
I have a question for Reese. So regarding your vocational training, did you get any grants from Department of Labor or similar entities to help with designing the program or building out the kitchen?
We have not. We're looking at it. We've applied and we haven't got it. All right. When we got Cargill, that was a lot of money. And so that's sort of what we put that on hold. But that is our next step, is to go to deed, but currently we haven't gotten any money.
One more question from the group, one or two more, and then I have a question that I'm ready to ask. Anybody else?
Yeah, Reese, this is for you. Do you exclude any farmers if have you had to say no to some farmers, or if they don't meet a certain criteria?
Honestly, with LEAF, the program we did it's all BIPOC farmers. It's exclusively BIPOC farmers. That's the first time we've done that, but a couple of our partners really wanted that. So we don't have any white farmers in that program. In our other programs, we don't discriminate against anybody. We just try. It's more like size that we're interested in, and try not to work. We have a healthy population of Amish farmers here that are really good at what they do. We don't normally work with the Amish just because they've already got so many markets already. That you know, we would, if we have a choice, we'll go to somebody who doesn't have a market.
Hey, Reese, this is Dr. Valenzuela. I have a question that might would help me, and so much of what you've said will help us all. Just amazing. You know, I work with the Environmental Working Group, and the soil and water infrastructure to keep our local food producers, which by local I mean we can see them at our back door. You know, one of the things we've done is work to give them state funds for water conservation and new underground piping, so they're not always fixing their laterals and that sort of thing coming. Of course, that's more of an environmental infrastructure component of a food hub, but it does provide solid evidence on the ground to a producer that we're working to help them on their margin sides and on their frustrated sides. Have you had any experience with something like that?
Well, no, I mean, not specifically, you know, I mean, we don't have the pressure, especially since climate change, on water. I mean, we don't, I mean, I farmed in Yakima, Washington for a number of years, and it was, you know, we irrigated every day. In our area, there aren't many small farmers that irrigate, you know, especially mung growers, especially the growers we do deal with. And so we haven't done that. I mean, we've done hoop house construction. We put up 3 hoop houses and paid for them, you know, just because of season extension. But not any environmental work. We haven't really got into that. And that's another area, like land access is a big problem for us. We haven't gone there yet either. You know, there is a working group in the Twin Cities that works exclusively with that have asked us to join them. And we've been hesitant just because it's such a big, it would pull us away from the other mission that we have, which is trying to help that, you know, it's a goal of every farmer to own their own land. But there are areas that we haven't stepped in just because we don't feel like we're able, you know. So does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, and thank you so much.
One of the interesting things, I mean, I'll just quickly say this, a lot of our vegetable growers are getting their butts kicked by climate change, right? Because we have wet summers. We never used to. We used to have hot, dry summers. We have wet summers. You can't grow broccoli. You can't grow cauliflower. You can't, and that was a staple crop for many of our farmers. And they used to make a lot of them, but there's black rot everywhere. And there's fungal diseases everywhere. And so it's changed, and it's happening right as we speak. So there's still growers that are trying to plant and trying to, you know, they don't totally realize the extent of the damage, but we see it because we see it coming into the warehouse, and you'll have a beautiful head of broccoli, and 2 days later there's black beads, and by the end of the week it's junk. And it's the same with cauliflower. So it's a real, like, we haven't adjusted to what's happening. Besides catastrophic weather events, it's the constants that are killing us. So,
you know, one thing that makes our project different is we're on the other side of the Continental Divide, and all the way down to California, there ain't going to be enough water, and it's going to be a big fight. So, but the other thing is, if you lash together resiliency organizations that work on stormwater runoff, that could help you. I know it could help us.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Cool.
I have a question for you regarding the location of your food hub and comparison to our community. So Pueblo is smaller, and sure, we have Denver right up the road, but our dream would be to make our community sustainable off our local food system. And right now we're certainly not there. We're a far way to go. Do you have any advice or guidance regarding how we might begin the steps for something like a food acre in a smaller community? I know Maggie mentioned an example of Decorah, Iowa, perhaps,
Mhm,
as
mhm.
being a good comparison. But how would you guide us as a smaller community taking our first steps towards this effort?
I mean, I would build up as many collaborations as you possibly can. I mean, that's sort of my job. And we've partnered with some smaller food hubs. We're outside of Minneapolis. We have a pretty good location. You know, we're very, very fortunate. Um, uh, but we partner with smaller food hubs to try to help them survive because it's going to be harder for them and its growth is going to be slower. You know, I mean, I feel like that's where the farm to school movement is a good place to start. The farm to healthcare, that the markets that are there that just need a push, I think is a really healthy place to, you know, because you're going to be, that's it. That we're just, who's your market? You know, well, if it's Denver, that's much different. But then who are you competing with to get into Denver? And then it's the money that it costs to get to Denver, make it costly, you know, too much money to get there. And also the refrigeration, you know, all those steps to get into a larger market. So what we've been working with a couple smaller food hubs to try to open up their community. You know, there's a couple south of us. Rochester, Minnesota is a community that's probably, I used to live in Denver when I was younger, and in all over Colorado, and I know a little bit about where you guys are. And Rochester is a very rich community, but it also is a very conservative community. So they don't. So we've been trying to help them open up a food hub where it's about 3 hours from 2.5 hours from the Twin Cities. And so what they're working on is building up the infrastructure in their area and not be dependent on the Twin Cities, you know, because it's really, really competitive too, as is Denver. You know, I mean, if you go up there you'll have to really find your niche and find people that really respect and value what you're doing. And that just takes time, and you have to have the financial wherewithal to survive the building that market and building your name and doing everything that it takes. So I feel like I hope that helps. I mean, that's what we've done is we deliver into markets that aren't even ours just to help some of the little food hubs near us, you know, especially on the farm to school thing. We go to districts that are way out of our way, and it's just to build this infrastructure and make farm food hubs viable, you know, because I feel like as a farmer, you know, I was on a pretty big farm, owned a pretty big farm. It was a struggle to hold on to markets, you know, because we didn't have the volume, and one bad day and we'd be screwed, or one bad season and the market would switch to somebody else. Having a food hub, you got all these farms together, somebody's got it within your organization, and that makes it so much easier.
And there's one more question coming through the chat. The beautiful facility that we saw in your pictures and in the video, may we be so bold, how much did that cost?
3.5 million.
Okay. And what's the
Yeah.
square footage on that?
It's broken up. I mean, I think the warehouse in the back is about 1,200 square feet. But that doesn't include the sky, because it's got 3 coolers, big coolers. It's got a freezer. I mean, that was my contribution to this whole project. When Maggie was with us at the beginning, I just wanted the warehouse. I didn't care about the kitchen. I really didn't care about the classroom. I just wanted the warehouse. And so we built a nice one, you know. And the classroom holds about 60 people. And the kitchen, I think it's got 6 stoves. I don't know the square footage on it, but it's an expensive building. Yeah, I mean, we're very, very, very fortunate.
One thing I'll say about the funding model, you know, there's a lot of food hubs that have to do bootstrap everything, right? And so the example of Decorah, Iowa, it started out in a walk-in fridge in the back of a cafe, and Decorah is a small town, like 8,000 people or smaller. And they grew that through time, you know, outgrew that facility. So you can essentially start at any scale. One of the benefits of the Good Acre is we essentially had an angel investor. There's a family, a very wealthy family in Minnesota. They own the baseball team. They own a ton of different things. And the third generation of that family just were really, really interested in sustainable agriculture and community food systems. And they actually approached us to say, we'd like to create a food hub. And Reese and I were like, we're not really sure we need one in the Twin Cities, but okay. So they were generous enough to, provide the funding. They still own the land, right, Reese? Or do you guys own it?
They own it. They're giving it to us.
Yeah, so there's, and so what they did is they were essentially an angel investor and continued to provide support. The Family Foundation committed to extended support. So that's another piece of the puzzle of the funding models as you think about this. There are other food hubs that have found existing facilities that they're able to kind of retool. Sprouts Food Hub in Battle Creek, Michigan is a good example of that. Some people are repurposing old grocery stores, so sometimes people are able to avail themselves of existing facilities. We have a stunning, shiny new thing, as you have seen, and it's right next to the agricultural campus of our land-grant university, University of Minnesota. So we don't call it the farm campus anymore, but we're right next to the farm campus. And so Reese has also worked in various ways with faculty at the university, as well as students coming through the food systems major. And then I think you might have seen in the video too, that they have high tunnels on the acreage that the Good Acre has to train farmers. It's really fun to walk in there and see, kind of wall-to-wall lemongrass growing. So they also do some of that farmer education on site, in addition to the culinary training that they do in the kitchen. So one of the things we just found really helpful on the front end is doing our homework and learning about several different models, including models that failed. Because I got super excited about one model. I was like, my God, this is great. And then when I called them back to ask more questions, they had gone out of business. So, it's really instructive, and that can be helpful too. And I would say in any case, regardless of the sort of formula approach you might come up with, that intensive, diligent homework is really a key piece. And there are good examples. Walla Walla, Washington, is a community, that county, there's two cities right next to each other. They received funding from one of the local foods grant streams at USDA to complete a food hub feasibility study. So that front end, even before you start thinking about the where or the building, doing that upfront study is really important. And there are really smart people who know how to do that. I'm sure you have those smart people in your community. And then it's also helpful to do these kind of virtual tours, or even show up and do a little bit of a site visit. So just a few pieces of advice.
All right. Well, we want to say thank you very much to Reese for joining us and sharing his story and his expertise and experience. Yes, round of applause from all. And Maggie, as always, thank you for taking care of us and nudging us in the right direction. I didn't know that you were instrumental in helping the Good Acre get started. I should have guessed. But it's awesome just to know all of the amazing work that you both have done there. And we're so grateful to learn from your example.
Can I just give you my my email is Reese, RHYS @thegoodacre.org. Anybody need anything, just ask. If you're in the Twin Cities, you want to come visit, yeah, you're welcome. We have a lot of tours and stuff. So
he really means it.
Very generous.
Yeah,
I'm
sure,
certain
no
that there will be people that take you up on that offer.
Yeah, of course. No, I think good luck, guys. I mean, I think it's just cut yourself slack. It's just, it's going to be, it's not the easiest path to take. It's really a good one, but from personal advice, just kind of take it slow. Just take it slow. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So before we move on, I'm just going to quickly share my screen, because I think we can all kind of guess that we have reevaluated the way we would use this morning's time based on our guest speakers, which is incredible. But I just want to have a quick conversation with the group, given that fact, and sort of check in on what's going to be most helpful for these meetings. There was a comment in the chat that said, it would be great to have more than 5 minutes on this topic, of course. And then we went pretty deep with our guest speaker. So I've been trying to organize these meetings with one food systems kind of learning, and also diversity, equity, inclusivity, access learning for each of our meetings. And as you can guess, setting up these activities and thinking through this takes quite a bit of time. But what I'm hearing from y'all is that perhaps we shouldn't be doing both in one of these meetings. Instead, we should do one month and then the next month the other. So food systems 101 and then DEI work the next month, and just kind of rotate. Is that, are folks, am I reading that feedback right? Is that something that we should think about institutionalizing for our March meetings and meetings moving forward, that we would dedicate a core part of the work time to either food systems learning or DEI work, and then we switch those two? Would just love to kind of open it up for conversation now, because it's an important decision for us to make together.
I think it's a really good idea, Monique, and one of the main reasons that I feel this way is because, you know, it takes a lot of time to internalize some of the concepts and the things that we're learning with these types of activities, and it's hard to do both all within an hour.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts and opinions?
So from a teacher's perspective, I think, you know, we're trying to accomplish a lot of learning during these meetings. And I think that we do the best learning when we can get into really deep conversation and just beyond, you know, that step beyond the initial question where you're really doing that critical thinking and applying it. And how can we do this? So I agree with you and Derek. I think if we did a every other month kind of learning, and we could focus on that and really dedicate a little bit more time each time. I think that's excellent.
Okay. All right. We are going to plan on that moving forward. So I'll revise the agendas, and next month we'll be talking about social determinants of health. And we'll really dig deeper on that meaty topic rather than trying to get a little bit in at each meeting. Okay, with that, we have about 12 minutes left. So we're going to continue to drink from this fire hose of information that is the Pueblo Food Project. And we're going to jump into our working group updates. Working group co-chairs, please, we be mindful, you know, we have 12 minutes left to do all the things we need to do. So your 60-second update is greatly appreciated. Mo, I'll start with you. Lead us by example, Mo.
Sure. So starting in January, our working group, this is the Food Economy Working Group, which, by the way, one of our big initiatives is really exploring the idea of bringing a food hub to Pueblo. So anybody who's interested in this conversation and being involved moving forward, I'd like to invite you to our next meeting. It's on February 16th. Put your email in the chat and I'll add you to the list. So we've been talking about that. We formed Entrepreneur Incubator Task Force, which is really aimed at looking at what it would take to help startups really start and scale here in Pueblo for entrepreneurs. What resources do they need? What kind, is there training? Is there regulatory stuff? We're looking at barriers to and successful ways that communities can support that. So that's my quick update. We're working every single week. We're meeting either the EI task force or the food economy. So just let me know about your email and I'll add you to the list.
And shout out to the volunteers who are putting in extra time on that task force and putting themselves out there as leaders for our group. It's very much appreciated. Okay,
Yes,
Dr. Kelly, how about you?
Awesome. The Food and Farm Literacy Education Working Group has been building some great partnerships. So we spend our time talking about the art show and the Natural Grocers education that's coming out monthly. Just a reminder to please sign up for that one. It's coming up about detoxification. And we also had an update about the education system, adding more indoor farming demonstrations. We have Roncalli going great with the Tower Gardens, their hydroponics, and the IFIS group has aquaponics, a NASA grant partnering with the Boys and Girls Club and doing outreach across Southern Colorado for that.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Jim, environment. You're on mute, Jim.
I talk so much, I have to mute myself. our meeting, we had a guest speaker about the economy. Oh no, I'm sorry, about the interplay of the topography and hydrology of the St. Charles Mesa. He has worked not only with Pueblo extensively, he'd be some help with the interaction with the local retail component, but about how we might work land use out there. So that was that. We are going to get started on a local primrose chili distribution with Mike Bartolo. And going forward, the work from the Salazar Center, which focuses on the environment, could be either this year or next year, a really good participant, showing how a food system can harness the environmental benefits of a local food hub.
And how about Lindy? Are you on the line?
I am. So for the food access working group, we took a moment to celebrate the things that we have accomplished, the action items, especially that relate to our, exactly what we planned and wrote out in the grant. And one success, I'm dropping a link in the chat. So we've created a Google form where you can post your food access related volunteer opportunities. So food pantries are a great fit, but there's a lot of other organizations. So people could go and find just on one calendar multiple opportunities where they can get involved in helping directly with food access. And that was one of our goals. So that's exciting. And then we also talked about what other areas of the community or different groups of people and the organizations that work with them or places that they live, how can we get food access to them through different partnerships? So with our ongoing working group members and some new folks that we welcomed, we brainstormed some new ideas to bring our healthy, nourishing food to a lot more parts of Pueblo and people in Pueblo. So that's about it.
And for the advocacy working group, snaps to the advocacy working group, because every single representative for Pueblo has been reached, all the way from the federal level straight down to our county commissioners and city council members. Every single person that's tasked with representing Pueblo has had a touch from the Pueblo Food Project. I did get confirmation that both Kate Greenberg, Senator Bennett will participate in November, very likely in person, if possible, at that time for our Sun, Soil, Water Summit. So in terms of our advocacy work at that high level, we're doing a great job. Walter Robb also has put it in his calendar. So in terms of keeping those relationships alive, I think we're doing really well. I had a lot of follow-up from our strategic update or executive briefing last week from folks who are interested in the food project, want to learn more about the food project, are interested outside of Pueblo regionally. So just kind of doing those follow-ups and excited to kind of get those conversations going. And the advocacy work group will workshop a concept for sector updates. So similar to the executive briefing, which is just kind of a very quick summary of all of the great things that we're doing. We want to do this, but with more focused, targeted audience. So one for education, one for restaurants, one for hospitals, that kind of sector specific conversation so that they know what we're doing to support their work. And then we hear from them, what do you think the Pueblo Food Project should be doing to help you kind of impact our local food system? So we're excited to workshop that next week. The Youth Council, we don't have a video from them because they crushed their work session on Monday. The Youth Council presented to City Council during work session on Monday. That recording is linked in your agenda. I invite you to watch that recording. It is my true pride and pleasure to say that every single piece of that presentation, the students did themselves.
Right on.
activities, the presentation,
All right.
the design. So they killed it. So shout out to them. Let's see, coordinator report updates. I know I'm starting to speak really fast, but you know how I feel about time. Most importantly, snaps around to the Food and Farm Literacy and Education Working Group, and huge appreciation and snaps to Sarah from Springside Cheese for creating an outstanding marketing plan. The Food Art of Pueblo show is up at the Pueblo Art Guild. We will be hosting a People's Choice Award and a cheese carving, thanks to Springside Cheese, on Saturday, March 20th at 1 p.m. So please swing by the show, vote for your favorite piece, and then join us on March 20th for that celebration. Several coalition members have pieces up in the show. Next, as Kelly mentioned, we have our community class with Natural Grocers this Friday. If you are available at 11 a.m. on Friday, please sign up. We had 20 participants at our first class, and Natural Grocers was thrilled with that turnout. I think right now we're at 8 people signed up, and we would really, really love to keep these numbers high so that Natural Grocers continues to give us this offering. Friendly reminder, classes are under an hour, and everyone who participates not only gets follow-up information, but receives a $5 gift certificate to Natural Grocers coupon. I'm not allowed to say gift certificate, but same idea.
Is this in the newsletter, Monique, where you can sign up?
It will be in the newsletter. Megan, if you wouldn't mind dropping the bit.ly into the chat, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
It's also on our Facebook and
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Last thing that I will mention from my coordinators report is that we have quote requests live. If you remember last meeting, I talked about that $175,000. Well, our quotes are out there. That item in the video, contracting with the farmers in front of the season, that's what we're about to do. This is a list that's out there for fresh produce. As you can see, it's not small pickings here. We're trying to serve 1,000 families with each one of these items, and they'll be harvested throughout the season. So this has gone out to our farming networks, but if you know farmers, nudge them. Same for local processed product. There's another RFP that's out there. So our institutional procurement efforts continue, and very excited that we get the opportunity to bid in front of the season, just like the farmers asked. So they asked, we listened. I think that is the quick and dirty. We have 1 minute left. Does anyone have an announcement that they want to share or an appreciation to send out to the group? Thank you, Brandy, for that sign up.
Monique, you just rock. Everybody that's been working within the group, you guys are all just awesome people. I'm so happy to be a part of these groups. I love the presentation that we had last week, Monique. It really showed what Pueblo Food Project's all about with all of the great participants here. So you guys are just awesome. I'm so happy to be a part of this group. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Brandy. We're all in this together.
I want to say thanks again to Reese. Really appreciate it. Great presentation.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad folks felt inspired by that. Any other?
I'd like to put a shout out to Megan Moore, who put together a fabulous event and presentation, and Monique too, last week for our stakeholders. It was awesome. Great job.
All right. Any other questions, conversations before we get back to our Wednesday? Whew.
I just want to thank you, Monique, for all the mentoring and the training that you do of all of us. It is, I know it's exhausting, and you rock this. You handle it with such grace, and your tolerance of all of our questions and all of our craziness. And thank you. I appreciate you, because I'm learning so much, and I'm trying to learn this food system thing. So
it's my pleasure. We're all in this together. We have that shared vision. We have that shared goal. So let's get it. Here is the evaluation for this meeting. Remember, this is very helpful to us. Thanks for letting me switch things up on the fly. Our meeting structure will change just a bit, but So much appreciation to all of you. So much gratitude for all of the work that you're doing every day. And till we meet again, peace out. Pueblo Food Council members, keep this line open. We will stay on this Zoom for our next meeting. I think council members, maybe let's give ourselves until 10:10, and we'll be back. When you're back, please turn your camera on.